I've been showing you guys mostly boxing combined with Systema, where yeah, the strike is more or less Systema, but I'm using boxing footwork and I'm using boxing style kinetic chains. But in actual Systema, it doesn't matter where you're hitting from or where you're hitting at. It's all just about the natural movement while being relaxed. Right? And so, you know, in Systema, you should be able to do all kinds of strikes. But one of the issues with fully understanding how to train these strikes on your own when you don't have someone to practice with is that there's a lot of internal components, both offensively and defensively, that are easily missed. And that's why they refer to Systema as an internal system. For example, when I breathe, it's just loose and relaxed. Just relaxed, short breaths. And when I'm on offense, do the same thing as boxing, where you release the air, but you also do it on defense, because when you're taking a hit, you know, it goes, and instead of being like in boxing where you flex and kind of turn, it's like, it's either that or, you know, I could feel the first one still even after the second one, but I couldn't feel the second one. You know, and it's similar with the face too. In boxing, they'll teach you to see it coming and dodge, which is great. But when they roll with punches, they're dodging punches. Whereas in Systema, when you roll with punches, I actually gave myself contact to prove the point. You know, I'm actually rolling with the punch. And what that does is it removes a good portion of the velocity because you're moving the same direction at a similar speed. So you're reducing the impact. And then I do that with gut shots, shoulder shots, face shots. You know, like if someone goes for a haymaker, you know, or an overhand, I just, you know, maybe I'll go boom like that while they do their overhand. You know, and they go for a gut shot, grab the arm, bam, bam. Right? And so I still can't help but kind of use some of the boxing principles because I like to maximize power. It's something about my insecurity that I just have to maximize power. Even when I'm going light, I try to make sure that I'm getting maximum kinetic chain. But you should be able to just do it anytime, anywhere. But like I said, on the punching bag, especially with this hung so high, it's heavier down here, and this isn't fully going to simulate a rib cage in the way you would expect because it's relatively even pressure in this area all around, whereas the ribs have certain spots that you can get between, and some spots are not so easy to deal with your hand landing on it. Maybe you hit the wrong knuckle, you know, but it's also about, again, the defensive aspect, your opponent's breathing. So if they're using boxing or MMA style breath work on defense, Systema strikes are going to work really well because a big part of it is the type of shift of energy is instead of going powering through, you're using a wave like that. You're using a wave, right? Every time I do it, it's always a wave of some kind, right? And I'm sending a shock wave into their body. So when they have breath in their lungs, it rattles, it explodes inside. And that's why, you know, that's why you decompress when you take a shot. You know, because you don't want to have that effect happen to you, because it can still be somewhat achieved with follow through, but it's just maximized with that easy wave motion. Because it's not about the torque, it's about the clean kinetic transfer, where when you're following through, you're having resistance and force going back up through your arm. When you don't follow through, that force stays with them. It does not come back. You know, so so now you have a little bit more of an insight on how Systema ballistic strikes work. and why using a punching bag isn't something you see very often in Systema gyms, especially because they train the defensive aspect. They'll have people just punch each other. It's not sparring, because they're not trying to win over the other person or see how they can get an edge. They're just drilling, you know, the application of offense and the reception on defense. You know, so they're practicing getting those hits and decompressing, and the person attacking is getting a real, accurate, reliable source of data from their fists hitting the real thing with real force. You know, which you can't really do in boxing for the whole time. Like, eventually when you hit someone in the gut enough times, it's going to be over. They're going to be exhausted, they're going to be in pain. But with the breath work and with the fluidity of working it with your partner as a drill, you work on the effectiveness of both sides to the point where it mitigates the damage you would take. So I've always been kind of a chiller person. Don't get me wrong, I can be excitable, I can get hyphy, but I'm generally chill. And Systema just works so well for that. Like, come on, like, you know, that's not as powerful, obviously. You know, it's probably a quarter as powerful as an actual cross, but a quarter is pretty good at that speed. You know, that's pretty good. You know, that's pretty good. And so sometimes you'll see me doing kind of boxing training, but my arms are moving faster because I'm not relying on the positioning and the movement of my feet. I'm not kicking off the ground every time I throw a punch. Sometimes I'm just going for it, and the feet are just moving as they need to keep me standing. So, you know, I really wish I had someone to train with because I could work more on the transfer. You know, for example, me and another person could literally stand like this, orthodox facing each other, and we could go like this and take turns, gut shotting each other and defending. We could even do it at the same time. You know, people tell me not to lean all the time. Don't listen to that. Like, yeah, if you're gonna box, if you're gonna do combat sports, sure, probably listen to that. But in real life, there's gonna be times where you're off balance and you still have to do something, you know? And being able to fill those gaps will not only give you chances to hurt the other person, it gives you time where you're taking the initiative on offense, therefore less likely to be attacked in response, and you're able to catch your footing by the time it's over. Yeah. So, yes, this is technically a fair way to train Systema, but you're not going to get all of it from that. Especially because I can sense that it is still a little bit about the follow through when I practice it that way. Whereas if I had another person, you know, we could practice the real deal without really thinking about it very much. And that's why they don't use punching bags. So, yeah.